Welcome to Soulful Conversation, the podcast that highlights stories of individuals sharing various life experiences and challenges. We showcase strength and resilience found in everyday experiences. So get ready to be inspired, informed, and entertained as we dive into topics with wit, wisdom, and a whole lot of soul. This is your space to laugh, learn, and connect with two fabulous women making a difference. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive in together to this soulful conversation with Shar and Miko. Welcome, Soulful listeners. We hope that you stay connected to us during the week through our weekly podcast on Spotify, our YouTube channel, Patreon, and social media. We love to hear a soulful story, so please send us a request to be heard on the podcast at soulful-conversation.com. Today we have financial advisor Schanice.staples in the building from Northwestern Mutual. Oh, and I forgot to announce my co-host is out of the studio today, but she will be back with us soon. So let's wish her well and keep her prayed up. Welcome, Schanice.
Hello.
Thank you for joining
Thank you.
Conversation today.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So we're about to get into some serious topics today, you guys. We're going to talk about the importance of life insurance and financial planning. And there's like a big taboo around life insurance within the Black community. And so we want to just stress the importance of how important it is and why it's so important to have life insurance and to set financial planning steps in your future. So let's just dive in. Why is life insurance critical? Why is it such a critical component of a comprehensive financial plan?
It is super critical because unfortunately we all have to pass away. And I think over time, investments and things of that nature have been sensationalized, and a lot of people's focus is on investing. And we don't talk about how you need to protect everything that you're building. So life insurance is really that foundational piece of the financial planning process. And again, we all have to pass away at some point. So we need to have our affairs in order. And again, if you're focused on just investments, you're definitely missing a large component of a comprehensive plan.
Right. We're definitely going to leave here. We're not going to get out of this life alive. So it's super important sending out the GoFundMe's, and I know it happens. Unfortunately, we see that all the time on social media. You know, help. I'm sorry for my son is texting. If you hear that ding, my text messages are coming through. But yeah, we see the GoFundMe's all the time on social media. And for me, when my parents died, my parents always had life insurance on their kids, even as grown adults. And they were married 65 years, so they had it, you know, the whole time they were married. And my mom used to get on my case a lot. You know, you have 3 kids. You need to make sure you have life insurance for the kids and yourself, because I can't put you in the backyard. You know, you can't dig a hole and put you in the backyard. So for me, with them, you know, just pounding that into my brain, it was very important for me to have life insurance, because I can't dig myself a grave in the backyard, and neither can my loved ones. So with that being said, can you explain the different types of insurance policies? I know there's so many, but can you just tap into like some of the unique benefits of some of the life insurance policies that are available?
Yeah, definitely. So there's like several different types of life insurance out there. I like to give a visualization to the people that I meet with, but there's 2 really main types. There's term insurance and then there's permanent insurance. Term is really there to protect you for a certain period of time. So like, as you mentioned, an example is when you have small children, you're financially responsible for them. If something happens to you, right, that burden then goes to either the other parent or to another relative. So you want to make sure that there's funds available for that. But then there's permanent insurance. And then that means that there is a living benefits aspect to it as well, which means that there's benefits that you can actually access while you're still alive. And so there's also policies that have more flexibility of the premiums, more flexibility of the death benefit. And they can just vary depending on the different subtypes under the permanent and or the term insurance. But those are the two main types, and then there's several subtypes underneath those.
Right. So even with permanent insurance, like you said, there's benefits that you can use while you're still alive. So if you have a kid that's going off to college, you can easily pull that money out, yes, and be able to
Um,
send your kid to college, or how does it work?
Yeah, definitely. So you can, but it does reduce the death benefit. So that's kind of the disclaimer. I think that's also not talked enough about, and it's not, people aren't educated on how you can take money out. There are some really unique ways to utilize the cash that's inside of a policy, but you do have to realize that you're either going to reduce your death benefit down the line, or you have to structure it in such a way where that's not the case. So working with a financial professional is going to be the biggest thing that you can do, because they're going to be able to structure it properly for you in whatever situation that you're trying to have that cash work for you in. So if that is education purposes, if that is retirement purposes, if that is to purchase a property or a second property, whatever your goal is, the financial professional is going to help you to structure the policy so that you can hopefully achieve that.
So with that being said, does individual, do they need to worry about like taxes or applying for anything when my kid's going off to college? I need to take out some money to send my kid off to college. You have to worry about that money being taxed that I'm borrowing against my policy.
Yes, if you do not take it out properly. So again, if you're not working with a professional, if you're just kind of like, hey, send me this, and you're
Right.
not consulting anybody, yes, you can pay taxes on that. Again, if it's not done properly. But there are ways to make sure that you are taking the money out in a proper way so that you can avoid that tax bill at the end of the day.
Okay. So how do you determine the appropriate amount of life insurance coverage for an individual or family? Like what are the steps that someone needs to take? Like, are they planning for, okay, when I'm 60, this is what I need to have to be able to, so I can live comfortably? How does it work?
Yeah, definitely. So there's actually several different methods and ways that you can determine the right amount of life insurance for you. Because some people just think you need money for just burial, but again, there's so many other uses for it. So there's a few different combinations of ways that you can figure that out. Again, it's what is this policy for, right? Is it to protect your family just in the event that you pass away, to do income protection? Is it something that you want to utilize for retirement purposes? Because based on that, the calculations are going to look different. But one of the main ones that I like to use, especially for people who have children and families and mortgages, it's called the DIME method. So DIME, D stands for debt. So that's calculating all the debts that you have, whether that's car notes, that's student loans, that's credit cards, whatever those are. So calculating that. Next is income, and how much time you want that income to last for your family. M is for mortgage. If you don't have a mortgage, you can skip that section. And then E is for education if you have children, and or final expenses. And so you calculate how much you would want for education. So for example, if you wanted to send your child to college, how much is 4 years at either a public or a private university? And then use those figures. If you have several kids, you multiply that. And then you add all of that up. And then that will give you a round number of about how much life insurance you should have.
Okay. Okay. See, got some good little nuggets for everybody. Tap in with Schanice. She's the financial advisor, and get your affairs in order.
Yes, yes.
Because, like, people are dropping left and right.
Sadly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just a fact of life, whether it's, an illness or an unplanned death, you got to go. So it's important that we have these things in place. How can life insurance be used as a financial tool beyond just providing a death benefit?
So
Or
as
let me tap backwards a little bit.
okay.
What are common misconceptions that people have about life insurance that you need to clarify?
I think the biggest one is that, again, it's just for final expenses. I hear all the time people, when I ask them, when you hear the word life insurance, what do you think of? They think of funeral, they think
Hmm.
of funeral, they think of cremation. And I think that's the biggest misconception, is that that's the only use for it. When it can do so many other things, and so many people are utilizing it in so many creative ways. Again,
Right.
working with a financial professional is going to give you some access to some of those ways that you can really utilize life insurance outside of just the death benefit. And
Right.
also that it's only for funeral. Because I think, again, a lot of people don't think about the fact that, hey, if I have a 2-income household and we're living off of those 2 incomes, or even if we're only living off of one and we're saving the other and we're doing all of our extracurricular activities with the other income, if one of those incomes goes away, our lifestyle completely changes.
Completely.
I'm not sure where it cut off, but to finish my thought, again, if you're missing an income, again, I think people's focus is so much on just death benefit for just funeral that they don't think about the income replacement piece of it as well. And I think that's really the most vital piece. I think people don't think about the emotional impact that a death can have, right? And the time that people need to just mourn a loss, right? Unfortunately, if you're employed by someone, generally you're only going to have a certain amount of bereavement days, and then you're going to only have so much leave that you've had accumulated. Once that's over, you have to go back to work regardless, because bills don't stop, right? And we still need that money. So people don't think about that either, that, having money available just gives people options, whether that person's able to go right back to work or not. Some people need that, to keep going, but some people really can't function. And some people have to quit their jobs eventually because they just...
In Bali, if something happens to my husband, I'm gonna just, Maui, pick a place.
Seriously, yeah. And it's like, would you want the freedom to be able to take a year off of work, or 4 or 5 years, or now, hey, I financially set you up so now you can actually go pursue your actual dreams. Like, you're not even worried about your bills, right? That's covered now for you. Like, would that not be like a really great love letter, like last love letter to leave to someone, right? So I think that's the biggest misconception, is that it's just for burying somebody, and it can do so much more than that.
I know, I told my husband he wasn't going to make it to my funeral, but I was going to make it to his.
So he got to set you up right then.
Okay. Well, okay. So what advice would you give? So there's a lot, like my son is 22. He's going to be 23 next month. And his age bracket makes me super nervous. That black male between that age bracket makes me super nervous. So what advice would you want to give to young professionals, or just young people in general, about life insurance?
Really, the main advice I would give is just to assess the needs that you have for your future self, not your current self. So with my younger clients, I tell them all the time, like, hey, you might not have a family right now. You might not own a house right now, right? You might not have that business right now. But if that's something that you're striving towards, and those are the things that you want to be able to ensure that now. Why? Because it's going to be the cheapest that it'll ever be. And more times than not, you're going to be the healthiest thing that you'll ever be. I've unfortunately run into several situations where people, even in their like early 30s, they can't be insured. And it's because of health things that, transpired in their 20s to 30s. So it's like in their 20s, they didn't have a need for it necessarily, but now in their 30s, they do. They have a mortgage that they're half responsible for. They have children they're half responsible for. They have businesses and things of that nature. And now they can't even be insured. So that's my biggest advice, is to start earlier and get insured earlier, and insure yourself for as much as you can, because you can always downsize. You can't always increase, right? And that's kind of with anything.
So my last couple questions regarding insurance is, how do life circumstances like marriage or having children impact life insurance needs? And then what roles do life insurance play in estate planning? Because that's like a thing, your estate planning. So how does life insurance tie into all of that?
Yeah. So life situations are going to be dependent on how much life insurance you need. Because again, for that example I just had with my younger clients who tell me, hey, I aspire to have a family, I aspire to do these things, right? My recommendation is going to look a lot different than someone who's like, I never want kids. I actually don't want to really stay in one place. I kind of want to move around. I want to travel outside the country, right? So the recommendation just looks way different, because their needs are different. One person, hopefully will have people dependent upon their income. The other person, probably not. And or if it's even that same individual who's like, hey, I don't want kids, but I have aging parents that I'm financially responsible for. Well, if something happens to you, what happens to your aging parents, right? So it just really, that's kind of how life circumstances can dictate how much you need, is based on what you're responsible for and what you aspire to do in your future. And then what role does life insurance play in estate planning? It's a huge part of estate planning. So working with, again, a financial professional can help you to mediate whatever tax liabilities you may have or that you may encounter from a loved one. And it can have a unique benefit to tax-free income during that time, so that you're not having to pay these estate taxes out of pocket, and things of that sort. So it's really, again, really important to work with a financial so they can assess your particular situation, see if you're subject to estate tax. Like, what do those assets look like? How do we get below that potentially? So there's a lot of different strategies you can implement. So it's really important to start thinking about that ahead of time rather than when you're in the midst of it.
Right. Who wants to wait until you're in the midst of it? Then what? Now you're frantic. Think right. So get your life insurance in order, people.
Please.
We don't need more GoFundMes. We don't.
We do not. We do not.
Don't want to see. Well, let's get into a little bit of this investment questions, because everybody got questions about investments and what do I do? Where do I start? How much money do I need to start with? So just to start, in your opinion, what is the key principles of successful investing?
Well, first and foremost, have your foundational piece of your financial plan set. So have your disability income insurance in place, have your life insurance in place. So those are the two first ones. But then the next one really is just starting early. Like, we don't teach compound interest nearly enough in school. It's so cute because I just had a conversation with my nieces. I actually made them have a meeting with me because we're opening accounts for them because they are getting their first jobs. And I'm like, I wish someone would have told me when I was 16 and had no bills, hey, start investing now. And I gave them a really great example. When I was in college, Netflix was new, right? They were new to the scene. Now we're Netflix gone, right? And so I just want them to be aware of that earlier. So I think really just exposing yourself early as possible and starting early. It's not necessarily about the dollar amount that you're saving or that you're investing. It's really just about the amount of time you give yourself to invest.
Right. Okay. So what about the old heads? What about the OGs that are just like finally getting their stuff together, or the last 10, 15 years? Where do they start?
Honestly, it's really figuring out where your money is. I feel like that for me is a big thing when I'm meeting with pre-retirees. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people don't even know where everything is. So you really should start with figuring out where is everything, how is everything going to work together, and then what is the gap that we need to fill? Because until you know what that gap looks like, you don't really have an idea of what you should be doing, and you're kind of doing things arbitrarily. And I feel like you need a more concrete plan in place. So again, figuring out where everything is, figuring out what benefits you're going to have, and then figuring out, will I have a gap? And if so, going from there.
Okay. There you go, y'all. It's never too late. So how do you assess an individual's risk tolerance when advising on investments?
So it's really
the risk.
So this is, I love this question because a lot of people kind of think risk is dependent upon your age, and it's not. Because I have people who are in their late 60s, 70s, and we have some of their money very aggressive. Why? Because it's money they'll never touch, ever.
Right.
Like, they're never even going to see it. So, but usually I use a questionnaire just to assess kind of people's tolerance and how they feel about different market conditions and if something were to happen, because a lot of investing is emotional, right? So that's, again, why working with a professional is so important, because we're kind of a step back, right? But money is just emotional. So people make a lot of emotional decisions. But the questionnaire helps me to assess kind of emotionally kind of how people would feel about things. And it's interesting to see because I have some really young people that are like moderately conservative. And I'm like, I have to explain to them that, hey, we have a timeline, we have a time horizon. I have to talk to people about the fact that you're not going to use all of your money day one. So different pools of money should have different risk tolerances attached to it. So that's essentially how I assess somebody's risk tolerances based on a questionnaire. And then we have a conversation around what their goals are and, again, their time horizon.
Well, just like Warren Buffett said, never make a financial decision based on emotion. Boom. There you have it.
A lot of people do, let me say that.
Everybody, like they do it anyway. I don't know if do you do that? You're a financial advisor. Have you ever made a money decision based on emotion?
100%. I'm still human. I am still human, and financial advisors need financial advisors, right? So yes, for sure.
So what are some common pitfalls that new investors should avoid altogether? Like stay away from, don't even think about it.
I don't want to say 100% don't think about it, but honestly, not working with a professional.
Oh,
a lot of people try to just dive in and they start playing around with things. And obviously, like professionals, we go through a lot of training. We have to take a lot of exams. Like there's a lot of education that has to go into it. So unless you're willing to put that kind of time in, because you can still, do all of those things and acquire that same education without becoming quote unquote licensed. But if you're really willing to put that kind of time in, I wouldn't play with my money like that unless it's money that you're willing to lose. Honestly.
I have been doing that, like, oh my God, what did I do? I'm thinking I'm just gonna buy these investments, these stocks, and then they said bye-bye. And I said, what happened?
Yeah, because again, I think investing is very sensationalized right now. It's like a hot topic. But nobody talks about the fundamentals of it. And again, people aren't educating themselves. There's a lot of education. That's why a lot of people and professionals get paid to do these things. Like even for me, I'm not a portfolio manager, right? Which means I don't trade for my clients day in and day out, right? Why? Because that's a whole nother level of professional, like that they have to do a whole lot more education. They have a lot more expertise, and it's a lot more time commitment that you have to have. So if you don't have that, you really should pass the torch to a financial professional.
Well, yeah, they got, all these people on social media, and they're telling you to do this and do that and that. And social media is a big engine for people to fall into a trap.
Well, yeah. Most of those people, unfortunately, are not licensed either. Like a lot of them are not licensed financial professionals, and a lot of them have never been financial advisors. So they are not regulated. They don't have anybody that they have to answer to. And so, yeah, you can fall into that pitfall of listening to people that honestly, sensationalize it. Again, they're not telling you all the risks that come along with it. They're just telling you all the great things that can happen, which there's two sides to every coin, right? If you hit it big, it's great. But there's a downside to that as well.
Well, how do you recommend balancing short-term and long-term investment goals? Excuse me.
It's really about, again, figuring out what are the goals. I think I've sat down with people and they don't have really set out goals. And I tell people all the time, you have different goals. And so based on those goals are how our investment strategy is going to differ, right? Because if you tell me you want to do something in the next 3 years, then I'm not going to use certain investment tools, products, services for those specific monies. Right. But if you don't want to do something for 20 years, now we have more options. So again, it's really, the other thing about working with a financial professional and the feedback that I've gotten is that a lot of times people don't just sit down and have those kind of conversations with themselves. They don't ask themselves, like, dream, what are the things that you want to accomplish? And so at the very least, you can have that kind of conversation. It's going to bring those types of things out of you to figure out what it is you even want to do. A lot of people don't have that clarity.
They need to get with themselves.
Exactly.
Know exactly how I need my lifestyle. To the T, honey. Now and beyond.
No, for sure. But again, a lot of people don't. You'd be surprised how many people are like, I don't really have goals, or I don't really know. So
I need to leave some legacy in place for her. So,
there you go.
She's a diva already. She's like commanding already. So, all right. Well, okay. So I don't know how to really. Okay. So, are there any trends or sectors right now that that you think that new investors or somebody that's already been in the game making investments that they should pay attention to in the coming years?
Well, I just encourage people to focus on long-term investing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I think, again, short-term investments have been sensationalized, but it's really about the long term. It's about the long haul. So focusing on that. And then every person's situation is different. So the sectors and things like that that you should pay attention to versus someone else are going to look different. Because again, it depends on your goals. So it's aligning your goals with what's going on in your portfolio. But again, that's really why diversification is so important. Like you want to be exposed to different things because each sector also has good and bad days, right? So just again, and I know I feel like I'm repeating myself, but again, not just for me, but just literally go find a financial professional. Like that is what we're employed for, right? Is to help you.
You need a financial professional. She said it at least 19 times already. So that's the bottom line, okay?
It is. It's just like people, sometimes you need, you can do, I believe in holistic medicine, right? I think it's beautiful in a lot of ways, but sometimes you need a doctor. It just is what it is, right? Whether a holistic doctor or not, you need a doctor, right? Because they went and did all those years of schooling so that you didn't have to do it.
Yeah, they know something.
Exactly. So it's the same thing about a financial professional. Like we put a lot of time, effort into our careers. I've been doing this for almost 10 years. Next month it will be 10 years for me. So thank you. So it's like it's really important to work with a professional so that they can help guide you.
Okay, well, we got a lot of changes. It's 2025. We got a lot of changes that's coming up for this year that's already taken place. So I don't know. We're in for a ride for the next 4 years, 10 years. I have no idea. So we're going to have some economic changes. We're going to have some setbacks. So how do economic changes impact investment strategies?
Definitely. So that's really a big, important piece of it. They impact it because one, you're not going to do certain things that you would do in a high interest rate environment that you would do in a low interest rate environment. Same with taxes and inflation. So oftentimes, for example, I hear people say 401k, right? Well, why was but who's telling people this, right? The older generation, people who were working and were paying taxes back in the 70s and the 80s. Well, what was the environment like in the 70s and the 80s with taxes? They were high, and we had a lot of tax brackets, right? Which meant it didn't take you a lot of money to get to the next bracket. So at that point, it made sense to defer your tax liability to when? Now, right? Because now those same people are the people that are going to be taking from those accounts now in retirement, right? And right now we're in a low tax bracket environment, right? But everything is cyclical, right? Which means what happened then probably will happen again. So now you're taking the advice of somebody that was in, again, a high tax bracket environment, but that's not where you're at right now. So again, paying attention to the economics is super important because you don't want to take advice from people who lived in a different time and who aren't experiencing the same economic times that we're experiencing. Just like the interest rate environment, right? People who bought their houses in the 80s are like, oh, this is normal.
Right.
We got spoiled. We got spoiled seeing 2%, right? That was spoiled.
I wish.
But that was spoiled, and we just didn't appreciate the time that we were in. That was a unique time, right? So again, the economics are very important. You got to pay attention to it because, again, you might be taking advice from someone who lived in a different economic time than you. And so what worked for them may not work for you.
That's not going to work. There you have it, folks. Economics 101. Pay attention in class. Pay attention. Dang. So, excuse me. Do you see the relationship between life insurance and investments in building long-term wealth? Do you think the two correlate together?
1000%. There is an entire study by Ernst & Young, and I encourage people to go out, look that up, read it. But it's a beautiful study, and it tells you about the inner workings of investing with life insurance with fixed income and how that really can provide a longer lasting, successful retirement than investing alone. So they definitely work in conjunction with each other, but you do have to do it strategically. You do have to work with a professional to get that done. But again, the Ernst & Young study is definitely something I would highlight and tell people to go check out. Because I don't think enough people know about it, but it's literally, they did their own independent research. They're not associated to Northwestern Mutual, like they are their own independent firm, and they came out with that. So I just think people should definitely go and check that out.
We're getting all kinds of gems, you guys, all type of nuggets going on here. So pay attention. Economics 101, pay attention. Okay, so there's a lot of scary cats out here, scary bears, scary cats, whatever you want to call them. How can individuals better educate themselves about life insurance and investment options? And also people that are scared to invest due to uncertainty. They're scared. I don't know. What should I do? How you mesh those two together?
Well, I'll answer one first. So the advice I would give to someone who is just scared of investing in general, because I have heard that, is people have to also position themselves to understand that you're still in a position of losing, even if your money is under a mattress.
Boom.
Why? Because you're losing to the power of inflation. Your spending power is going away. So just because you're not physically seeing the number go down, it's still decreasing. And so a great example I just, again, gave to my nieces were, when I was their age of 16, it cost me $10 to fill up my gas tank.
Right.
So when all my friends hopped in and gave me $5, I made money in that. Thank you to all you guys. And so, but now if I would have taken that same $10 and I would have left it in my mattress and I pulled it out today to go buy a gallon or a tank of gas, I would get 1/6 of a tank of gas for that same $10.
Yeah.
So that's the power of inflation. And that's only in a 16-year period of time.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like if you're uncertain, there are more secure things that you can invest into, right? But again, working with a financial professional will help to point you in what direction you need to go in based on your comfort level, right? Because you don't want to be, so fearful that you don't do anything. So I think the education. And then the second piece of what you said is how can people educate themselves? Is that was that the second part?
Educate themselves about life insurance and investment options.
Well, first and foremost is to go talk to somebody. But there's so much research out there too. Granted, the internet.
Where do they start?
The internet is vast. I don't know if there's one specific place that I would send someone, just because what's good for you may not be good for someone else.
Right.
There's a lot of financial books out there, and I'm not going to name any names, but some of these professionals that have a lot of clout, the advice that they're giving in those books, people are taking and running with it, and it's not really made for them. It's very cookie cutter, which just means they're telling everybody to do the same exact thing, and unfortunately, that's not realistic, right? That's why working with a professional is important, is because then it can be tailored to you, right? People all the time come to me and ask me questions, and I'm like, I don't know the first thing about your situation, so I can't just give you advice because you're asking a question, because somebody else can come ask me that same question and I might tell them something completely different, right? Based on what they want to achieve, based on what they already have going on, things of that nature. So that's really why working with a professional is important, because they're going to tailor it to you specifically. A lot of these books are going to just give you kind of generalized information or cookie cutter information, and it may not actually be the best situation for you.
Okay, you guys, this is what she's telling you. 1, okay, you need life insurance. Quit fooling around and get it. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You need a financial advisor. Ask a financial advisor if you don't know what you're doing. Talk to a professional. And 3 or 6 or 7 or 8 or whichever number I'm on, what is the most important takeaway you want the listeners to know about financial planning and financial security and life insurance?
The most important takeaway that I want people to leave here with today regarding financial security is that it's really just important to start early. Mm-hmm. It is important to start early. It's important to educate our youth early. So if you have kids, start talking to them now. Like I said, I'm doing it with my nieces, godson, and we're back.
Good.
Could you hear me?
It was getting blurry. It was getting blurry. It was going in and out.
So I'm just gonna repeat for the listeners. But again, the most important takeaway is to start early, to educate our youth early, start things for our children earlier than we got them. There's certain little things that you can do for your kids now that seems very minimal, right? Instead of buying them that one toy throughout the year, you could be putting that one piece of money away for them, and it could really have a huge impact for them when they're adults. So starting early, educating themselves early, and then also just realizing, especially for the younger generations, that we don't have the same economic safety nets that were built for the baby boomer generation. They're really the last generation that had those economic safety nets in terms of having a pension, having Social Security, right? Because even now I work with a lot of state employees who have pensions, and I tell them, hey, you can start getting and receiving your pension at 65, but full retirement for Social Security is 67. Yeah. So that's at least that minimum a 2-year gap right there.
Right.
And that's today. That's not 20, 30, 40 years. We don't know what they're going to do with Social Security. We don't know what that looks like. So again, the baby boomers, a lot of them could just work their 30 or 40 years and know that, hey, I can still survive. We don't have those same economic safety nets. So it's even more imperative that we start earlier, that we educate ourselves earlier, and that we take these things seriously earlier, because we don't have the luxury of time. Like we just don't have that same luxury that previous generations had. And we have too many resources. Like the internet is so vast. There's so many professionals out here. Like there's just no excuse to not get in front of the information.
Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. We have Miss Schanice.staples, financial advisor at Northwestern Mutual. She's telling you, Be sure to stay connected with us during the week through our weekly podcast on Spotify, our YouTube channel, Patreon, and social media.